It's been a minute. Hello again. Today, we're gonna go over my favorite lines from the Anthology. Now, I'm gonna be filming until it's time for me to go to the gym, so there's gonna be like a weird break and I'm probably gonna look different. I'm excited about this one because I created the list of my favorite lines pretty soon after the album was released, like within 4 or 5 days. And as I've gone back and listened to the Anthology, there are some where I'm like, oh man, wait, this line I might like more, like it might be my more favorite one. But I didn't change any of them. I promised myself that I wouldn't, so that it would be clean off the bat, but I probably will give some honorable mentions to other lines that I really, really love. As I said in my last video, or the one about Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner and their influence on this album, the Anthology was one that I initially was more hesitant about. But now that we're about 2 weeks out from the album, here's the deal. Folklore is the better album. Evermore has the better songs. Now, I don't necessarily think that the same is true for the Tortured Poets Department and the Anthology, but I feel like in principle it's similar. That right off the bat, you're like, oh, I love the way the Tortured Poets Department sounds. This is incredible. This is life-changing. And then with the Anthology, you have to give it time and you have to learn to love it. That maybe sounds redundant and also counterintuitive, but that's kind of how it feels in my brain. When I listen to songs in Evermore, I'm like, oh, okay, Evermore. And then I'm like, oh, Ivy, 'Tis the Damn Season, Coney Island, Champagne Problems, Cowboy Like Me. Oh my gosh, I can't pick one favorite. I feel similarly toward the Anthology. For Folklore and the Tortured Poets Department, I can say August, So Long London. You know, those are like the clear favorites. There are obvious standouts in Folklore and the Tortured Poets Department, but I feel like sonically, they're all fairly similar on the Anthology. But then I look at the track list and I'm like, oh my gosh, The Black Dog. Oh my gosh, Chloe or Sam or Sophia Marcus. Oh my gosh, how did it end? Oh my gosh, I look in people's windows. You sit and you think about the Anthology and then all of the other tracks come to mind. I have no idea how any of that is gonna read on camera, but that is the best way I can synthesize this pretty new thought I have in my brain. From there, let's get into my favorite lines from the Anthology. The Black Dog. Now this one, on first listen, was my favorite from the Anthology. Since then, I've grown, obviously, like I've said many, many times, grown to enjoy a lot of them. It's great. I had a friend text me today, actually, and say that, let me read it. Okay, from my dear friend Rachel. Today's Tortured Tailor take. I love that. The Black Dog is quintessential TTPD and Anthology song. Old Habits Die Screaming literally is so summative of many of the album's themes and individual songs' themes and experiences and stories. Agree. It's a breakup song. I can't disagree with that because it's a fact. Mourning and grief. There. Feeling replaced and insufficient in another relationship. Piano ballad in many ways. And emotionally wrought and written. And then I added killer wordplay. So that is a great, just brief summation of The Black Dog. And my addition of killer wordplay into my favorite line here. And pierced new holes in my heart, you forgot to turn it off. And we know the song starts out with, I am someone who, until recent events, you shared your secrets and your location. You forgot to turn it off. You forgot to turn off your location on my Find My Friends, Live 360, whatever the app was. So I can still see where you are when you're at your places. And so I watch as you walk into some bar called the Black Dog and pierce new holes in my heart. You forgot to turn it off. Now, someone would be like, oh great, it's just a refrain. No man, this is in reference to the heart of this speaker. You forgot to turn my heart off, and so it still yearns and it still breaks for you as I watch you go and live your new life. I love that. I love that play on words. I love the double entendre, and there's so many in this album and I just adore that. I'm gonna get you back which is so, it's sexy. It's great. I love it. I think the I'm gonna get you back in one word is unusual, and I'm not sure why Taylor Swift made the decision to denote it like this, but I think it's pretty sick. A lot of people were drawing comparisons between this and Get Him Back by Olivia Rodrigo, which you can't argue with, because it's the I hate him but I love him. I want him back, but I also want him to just die. It also has a lilty Reputation sound to it. I think there's also great comparisons between I'm Gonna Get You Back and Gorgeous, like the you should take it as a compliment that I got drunk and made fun of the way you talk, to like, I haven't decided if I'm gonna marry you or if I'm gonna wreck your property kind of thing. The I love you so much that I hate you. I love you, it's ruining my life. The line that I picked as my favorite is you'll find you were never not mine. And I think this is cool because it kind of invisible string, mastermind, like you were in love with me from the start also. And also, you were always mine in my head. I think that's a cool juxtaposition. I'll make you want to think twice. You'll find that you were never not mine. I think this also gives something back to the other side of this story. The speaker is caught in this conflict of emotions. She's not sure what to do with herself and these complicated feelings that she's wrestling with, but she also is not the only person in this situation. And so it gives some credit towards the other side of this equation, that they're unsure also. They're gonna think twice about going over and talking to her because she's cool and intimidating. They're gonna think twice about leaving her because they love her so much. They're gonna think twice about everything that they've ever known because they're so enamored with this person, with the speaker. And so I like that it plays into that this isn't just one person experiencing this. There's also the other side of this relationship, and there's conflict on both ends. Obviously, we're not going to see the other side of this as apparently or as openly as we get it from the speaker, but it's cool to have a little bit of extra background lore in there. The next one is the albatross, and this one is one of 3 that I don't think I've quite figured out yet on the anthology. I'll say it now, but I'm gonna say it again, that the albatross, Cassandra, and Robin I haven't quite figured out yet. And I think these are thematic outliers in the album. I imagine that the albatross and Cassandra is more about her experience with other people in the industry and similar situations with her masters and her former record label. And so it's kind of weird listening to, because I'm in the brain space of coping with grief and anger and residual love, and then it's also about just kind of thematic whiplash, which is fine. It's something that I need to get over and prepare myself for. Nevertheless, my favorite line in the albatross is, and you're persona non grata, which seems kind of like a weird throwaway line. Honestly, just like a cool flex. Persona non grata is just like an unwelcome person. But of course she says it in Latin, because why the heck not? This is honorary Dr. Taylor Swift. She's smart enough to just casually throw Latin into one of her songs, which isn't surprising, but I love that she did it. I don't want to bail and keep saying like, I'm gonna get to this later, but the songs in the anthology are just so loaded that if I start getting into them, I will never stop. There's so many things I want to talk about that I'm gonna try and limit myself. The next one is Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. This is one where I listen to it now that I'm like, I should have picked this line. I should have picked this line, because listening to it more, I find more lyrics that I love. But the one that I originally picked was, your hologram stumbled into my apartment. Now this just means I'm imagining you in my brain. That's it. But she picked a really cool way to say it. And also, your hologram stumbled into my apartment. Another example of her choosing sci-fi themes to put into her music that are unusual for her typical writing style, which is super cool. Another line that I love that maybe I would pick now is, all to outrun my desertion of you. And of course, I feel like I need to put that in context. So I changed into goddesses, villains and fools, changed plans and lovers and outfits and rules, all to outrun my desertion of you, and you just watched it. Maybe that's the one, and you just watched it. These 4 lines they talk about coping and just trying to create new pathways. Like Cornelia Street. I'll never walk Cornelia Street again. You have to find a different avenue, a different road to walk down in order to forget the places that you've been with this person. Like just trying to make new things happen so that you have new associations. All to outrun my desertion of you, the abandoning of the dream that I'm hurt by you, but I can still take responsibility for the end of this is really amazing. And you just watched it. You didn't say anything, you didn't try to get me back. It doesn't seem like you had any reaction. One that I didn't understand at first, Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, but is one that I really, really like now. Who's ready for How Did It End? Wow! Here's the deal. A little old person named William Bowery is credited for being a part of songs like Betty or Sweet Nothing's Exile. And if we listen to Exile and we listen to Sweet Nothings, there's very simple arpeggiation that is the lead melodic line for dun 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 or da 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 da. Which in the Long Pond Studios, Taylor's like, oh my gosh, and William Bowery, who is Joe Alwyn, if no one knew at this point, wrote these beautiful piano lines. Like, respectfully, girl, a 6-year-old could write those. And I have a lot of feelings that about this individual that I'm not gonna openly talk about. But if you read anything about the way that I talk about this, you'll get the idea. They're boring. Like, okay, great. I understand, like, oh my gosh, he contributed and I want him to be a part of this and I'm gonna give him a cool pen name, but like, they're simple, they're basic. So, why do I bring this up? So glad you asked. Because How Did It End and Love of My Life use arpeggiated piano lines to drive the main melody of the song. Are they simple? Are they 4 notes? No, they are not. They are exceedingly complex. However, I do love that there is a subtle music callback to those songs and to those feelings. For one reason or another, no matter who they're about, I love that it's diegetic to the Taylor Swift discography lore. So, my favorite line in How Did It End is, the empathetic hunger descends. I think there are a few different examples on the anthology where we see Taylor flip the script on her fan base. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is probably the leading example of that. We have songs like Long Live, which is like the anthem of the fandom, right? We have plenty of instances where she's thanking specifically the fans because we made this all happen, which is, technically true. Without people listening and showing up to her shows, none of this would exist. But my favorite line in How Did It End, being the empathetic hunger descends, also kind of takes this and says, y'all need to chill. In a very thickly veiled way. Empathetic hunger is what we really need to focus on. Everyone wants to know what happens. Everyone is like, oh, tell me what's wrong and I will listen and I will, understand and I'll be here for you. This isn't a gentle empathy. This is an empathy with an ulterior motive. They'll go home to their husbands smug because they know they can trust him, then feverishly calling their cousins. A fandom, the fan base, will sit there and say, oh my gosh, what happened? I want to know, I want to understand. But then they're going to sink their teeth in and they're going to want to rip it apart and understand everything that's happening outside of what they've been told. We'll tell no one, except for all of our friends. We must know, how did it end? Yeah, they'll tell their friends, but then everybody else, people who are outside of their circle, are still going to want to know, and they're going to want to devour the story and not understand the people. And if that's not what the Torture Poets Department is about, then I don't know what is. It gives me chills. But How Did It End is exceptional. And then we move on to So High School? Are you kidding me? This is like LOML into I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. from How Did It End into So High School. Are you crazy? My favorite line is, "You know how to ball, I know Aristotle." I treasure that line. Not only do we get more of the internal rhyme scheme, truth, dare, spin bottles, you know how to ball, I know Aristotle. Brand new, full throttle, touch me while your boys play Grand Theft Auto. It's true, swear, Scout's honor. You knew what you wanted, and boy, you got her. Brand new, full throttle, you already know, babe. Not to mention the beautiful Americana, like high school quintessential things that are thrown in there. Truth, dare, spin bottles, Grand Theft Auto, Scout's honor, rife with American imagery, and it's great. Nevertheless, you know how to ball, I know Aristotle. You're kidding me, right? I think I talked about this with the alchemy. It's a juxtaposition between the speaker and the person with whom they're involved, that she's gonna relate to it as the alchemy while also talking about sports, right? So you know how to ball, I know Aristotle. Like, we're both very good at very different things, but I'm high from smoking your jokes all freaking night. Like, no matter the differences, no matter the separate levels that we operate on for our respective careers, I'm sold. And I can't fully describe how much that line gives me joy. Something about it is just exquisite and beautiful because of the juxtaposition, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the interest, it just matters that they're happy. The speaker and whomever this is about. The next one is, I hate it here. But lucid dreams like electricity, the current flies through me, is a great line because it kind of refers to lucid dreams as the thing that powers the speaker. It's the thing that motivates them through whatever they're going through. The current flies through me. There's, the current of electricity, we have like a little bit of allusion to actual electrical currents, but also in the sense of being propelled. After that line comes, and in my fantasies, I rise above it, and way up there, I actually love it. That when you're in these lucid dreams and you're floating and flying and being peaceful, that's when I rise above it. That's when I actually love it. For as full of conflict and loathing as this song is, I think it's beautifully peaceful. It has such like a tame reverence to it. And one could see that as resignation also, that everything sucks and I hate it, but I've resigned to the gardens in my mind. So it can be kind of sad in that way also, that there's no point in yelling and fighting for this anymore because I found the peace inside my mind. Which is unfortunate because you can't have that peace in real life, but also a blessing because you found that peace internally. I really love this one. Also, it's a phrase my husband and I say frequently, so it's in my head a lot. The next one is Thank You, Amy. And here's my funny story about it. I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. Like, whoa, getting like a deep dive back to like the 15 era, right? And then I was looking at it and I was like, okay, there are 3 letters capitalized in this song title. This is very unusual. And in Spotify, the capital I doesn't have any serifs. So I was like, I don't think it's a lowercase L, but anyway, it threw me off. When I finally realized that the capital letters are K-I-M, I was like, oh, the person's name is Kim, maybe? But who is Kim? And then like 2 days later, I saw something about how Kim Kardashian is like blatantly called out in this video, in this song. I was like, how did I forget the one Kim that is very important to Taylor Swift lore? Anyway, so I figured it out now and everything's fine. Fun fact, my personal Amy has a name that rhymes with Amy, and so I can sing her name into the song. She knows who she is. This song is hilarious. I really like it. I like that it sounds kind of romantic almost. Like we have, obviously, Look What You Made Me Do, and This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, which are very, as Taylor Swift has called Reputation, bombastic. And they have sharp sounds, and this is just like a cute little guitar line, and she sounds kind of happy when she's singing it, but obviously it's about something very devastating to her. Again, I love that juxtaposition. My favorite line from Thank You, Amy is, "But I can't forget the way you made me heal," which is such a powerful line. I can't forget the way you made me feel is the line with which that line rhymes. And then to flip it into, "But I can't forget the way you made me heal." There's also the line, "But when I count the scars, there's a moment of truth that there wouldn't be this if there hadn't been you." Those lines convey a similar feeling, right? Of, dang, you freaking suck. But also, thanks for getting me to the place that I am. I couldn't have done it without you. Maybe I would have wanted to do it without you, but I couldn't have. I think specifically the language of "the way you made me heal," you could take that as, you didn't do any healing, I did the healing. You're on your own, kid. Yeah, you can face this. You're on your own, kid. You always have been. I've got this. You did your part of tearing me down, but I've gotten to where I am now. And I think that's so powerful. And it's just a fun song. And it is really, really unhinged to capitalize the K, the I, and the M in the song title. Dang. Taylor Swift was holding no punches in this album, especially not in the Anthology. And I really respect that about her. Also because I think someone's suspected girlfriend's name is Amy and it's spelled this way. Homegirl killed 2 birds with 1 stone and is gonna make a fortune off of it. And I respect the heck out of that. All right, we're on track 25 of 31, which is crazy. This is I Look in People's Windows, which is a very short song, but I treasure this one. So for me, as I relate this to myself, well, it's very relatable, first of all, but I think in a real sense, the people's windows I look into are cars. I'll look to see if we're driving in the same place. I'll look to see if a lot of things happen for me at church, and so I'd look to see if their cars were at church, or if I saw their car, like their same model of car, I'd be like, oh, is that them? Like, oh, no, they don't have this sticker, or it's, you know, like a different package or whatever. So this is a very relatable song in like a, well, like she says, deranged weirdo way, kind of like the Anthology version of The Outside from Taylor Swift, the debut album. The line that I picked for this was, "I'm afflicted by the not knowing," which I don't know that there is one in particular that I would pick over this, but I feel like this line doesn't encapsulate how grandly I feel about the song. I think you have to think of it less as the words and more about the feeling of this song, the anxiety of the insecurity, and just being like, I'm crazy for looking at other people's lives and seeing if you're part of them. I'm crazy for hoping that I can get a glance at a glimpse of what you're doing, and like a weird yearning for whatever perceived normalcy that this other person has. And I just feel like such like internalized and quiet anxiety about how this other person must be moving on, how they're going about their lives and they've completely left you behind. This is one that I'm really excited to get deeper into, because I feel like the things that I just said don't even begin to encapsulate how I feel or what I think about this song and its lyrics. So I love this one. I just feel seen by it, which is, you know, the irony of the title, but I do. The next one is The Prophecy. And this one I will be brief on because there's so much to get into. The line that I picked as my favorite was, "Thought I caught lightning in a bottle," which just means I thought I got lucky. I thought that, you know, everything else was going the way that I wanted to, and I was achieving the things that I set out to achieve. But it turns out I don't want those things anymore, which is the message of the song. This song is both so sad and so profound. So I'll just leave it at that for now. I thought I caught lightning in a bottle, but now I would do anything to give that lightning back, right? To change the course that I've put myself on. It's probably one of the saddest songs, if not on the album, of her entire discography. Hi, welcome back. It's the next day and I'm really sore from gym, but it was awesome. The next song is Cassandra, and like I said, this is one that I didn't totally connect with and still haven't quite like synthesized and appreciated, because while it does have similar themes, it also is topically different from the majority, from honestly like the 28 other tracks on this album, these albums, whichever you prefer. I think I mentioned before how this is akin to her experience, a Taylor Swift's experience, and other songs written about her experience with the music industry, with the selling of her masters with her previous record label. Cassandra as a song varies from her other songs in the I hate the music industry genre, insofar as it uses the legend of Cassandra, the Greek priestess, to fully inform the listener about the struggles and the true depth of the experience that Taylor Swift / the speaker endured in the downfall, I suppose. I want to get into this more in depth in like the specific Cassandra video, because the choice to use this as like an allegory, as the vessel through which to describe this metaphor, is insane. And I don't want to give too much away because there's so much to unpack. And as I was learning more about the story of Cassandra, the more I was able to appreciate and grow to love this song. But the line that I picked was, "I was in my tower weaving nightmares." I think that this relates to isolationism. And Taylor Swift herself has talked about how in the period, especially of 2020, when she was making Folklore and Evermore, I believe this was in a Rolling Stone article, she talked about how like she'll never get those years back when she just locked herself away. I think that notion, I'm not sure that's explicitly stated, but I think that notion extends to 2016, 2017, when she just was hiding out, which, as we know, musically was very fruitful because we have Reputation, Folklore, and Evermore. But I think mentally, emotionally, in retrospect, it was harmful because, you know, you're running away and you're hiding out from the things that make you happy outside of, you know, at the time it was this one person or the daydreams. And with the priestess and witch imagery that is prevalent throughout this song, I think it's easy to just say, oh, she was in her tower weaving nightmares and for other people. When she was isolated, it was, you know, to curse and to create, you know, negative energy to dispel on other people. But I think also you can look at it as, I was in my tower weaving my own nightmares. I had locked myself away and was stuck in my head thinking of all the horrible things. Instead of, you put me here and now I'm gonna curse you, it can also be, I put myself here and I'm cursing myself. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it for now. Moving on to Peter. And this is one that pretty early on I had a discussion with my friend Caitlin about. It was one that I didn't necessarily connect with, kind of had warring thoughts about what it was on. And then I listened to it, I read it as I was listening to it, and took some of her context, and it became one that I really, really love. I don't know that I can pick a favorite from the anthology, but Peter would definitely be a front runner. This of course plays into the long-term pining, right? Not necessarily relationship, not entirely situationship, but a pining and holding out for someone, thinking of the promises or the hopes and dreams that you have made with a person that can't necessarily come to fruition. As such, my favorite line from Peter is, "And I won't confess that I waited, but I let the lamp burn." Bro! What I think is cool about the anthology is that there are a lot of allusions that, like I said, are vessels for the metaphors in these songs. So we have the albatross, which I forgot to mention, but an albatross is like a freaking huge bird, but also there's the phrase "an albatross around your neck," which just means like this intensely heavy weight. I learned that from the Bastille song. That with the albatross, the exceeding weight, the dread and the loathing, you know, whatever it is that drags you down. Obviously, we have Cassandra, like we just talked about. I think Peter is definitely the last clear one in that. This allusion being to Peter Pan. We have like the Lost Boys era of your life. Peter Pan also takes place in London. It's very British. Apparently, there was a time when one of the prime suspects, for whom this album is about, referred to himself as Peter Pan. One thing my friend Caitlin also pointed out, and she is a much bigger the 1975 fan than I am. She has a lot more experience with their albums. And so she knew kind of about the timeline of the Maddie Healy Taylor Swift situationship. This is a little out of character as far as how I like to talk about the people that we can infer are involved in these situations. However, I'm going to be relying on textual evidence to back up my claims, so I feel like it's not totally speculation. It's using what we've already been given. It just feels a little bit more cavalier than previous analyses. With that said, there's a line in the bridge of Peter that reads, "And you said you'd come and get me, but you were 25. All right, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I was originally thinking of Joe Alwyn because line in Dancing with Our Hands Tied. 25 years old. Oh, how are you to know? Which is when they started dating. However, my friend Caitlin pointed out to me that the situationship with Maddie Healy and Taylor Swift started about 10 years ago when Maddie Healy was 25. That goes in line with the, you said you were gonna grow up, then you were gonna come find me. There's all the lines throughout both albums, the Tortured Poets Department and the Anthology, that refer to the dreams and these hopes and aspirations that we had that were, you know, strewn across years, right? It's not something that was like immediate or looking towards the future, but something that inhabited the past as well. Given the context Caitlin gave me, I can see how this leans more towards one side than the other. And also with, you know, songs like Guilty as Sin or Fresh Out the Slammer, it just feels like it occupies a longer amount of time than, you know, one relationship that lasted a few years and thought about the future. It feels like it's more scattered. Source on that is Trust Me. So, my favorite line in Peter, getting back to it, is, "I won't confess that I waited, but I let the lamp burn. But I want to go down to the end of the bridge, but the woman who sits by the window has turned out the light." And if we think about Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, to then specifically use the word, "but the woman who sits by the window," to say that the speaker has grown up, the speaker has learned, and they held out for as long as they could, but now they're grown. They're a woman. They're not a girl. They can't hang around with the Lost Boys anymore. She's looking for a man. "I won't confess that I waited, but I let the lamp burn, that just in case. But the woman who sits by the window has turned out the light." The girl let the lamp burn, but the woman decided it was time to turn the light off. If you can't tell, I love this song. I think it's really, really beautiful musically, and lyrically it's a knockout, and I can't wait to delve more into it because that's gonna be a long video. Up next we have The Bolter. This one is difficult for me to think about because I can only think of Aelin, a Shriver Galathinius from Throne of Glass. So when I do an in-depth video about this, I'm gonna either just focus on Aelin or I'm gonna have a really hard time thinking about anybody else. I do love this song. I like that I think what also makes me think of Aelin is that it is kind of jaunty. Like, it could be a very like mournful dirge-like song sonically, but it's kind of got the, "by all accounts she almost drowned," like it's kind of got like you can feel like a swagger in it. I love it. I love this one. The line that I picked, and this one I'm not entirely sure about anymore, but I can't pick, this is one where it's like, you know, by stanzas, not necessarily by lines. So the one that I picked was, "She's been many places with men of many faces," which I guess is technically 2 lines. I like the internal rhyme. I like that it just suggests traveling. She was exploring, she was adventuring, she was finding out all of these things for herself, and she was trying it out with a lot of different people. The bridge is really great. If I could pick one line, it would be the bridge, right? She's been many places with men of many faces. First, they're off to the races, and she's laughing, drawing aces, but none of it is changing, that the chariot is waiting. Hearts are hers for the breaking, there's escape and escaping. I just love like the idea, and I can't help but think of Aelin Schreiber Galathinius, because of just the joy and the vibrancy that this woman possesses. You know, whether you want to think of it as Taylor Swift or a book character or yourself or whatever, whomever this song is about, there is a cowboy spirit in it. There's a restlessness and a wildness about her, and I adore that. And I love that the music reflects that. I feel like this is a song that has a life of its own, and maybe it's because I related so closely to a book character that I spent, you know, 7 books reading about, but it feels like this is its own person, the Bolter. 2 more. The next one is Robin. And Robin, I feel like as far as songs about children, Robin doesn't hit quite the way Never Grow Up or 7. It's kind of about childhood. I feel like this one doesn't hit quite as much. And honestly, it might just be the tempo and the beats per minute, because they're a lot slower. Aaron Dessner does have a child named Robin, so that could be whom this is about. I think of it as Robin from the Lego Batman movie. I think that this is from Lego Batman's perspective about Robin. The line that I picked was, "You'll learn to bounce back just like your trampoline." I think I just like the simile in this, trampolines being a very childlike activity, but also the promise that you will learn, you will figure it out, and you will bounce back like your trampoline. It'll be okay, and it'll be fun. Yeah, let's go with that. That's all I really have to say. It's kind of a short song. The stanzas, the verses and everything are like 4 or 5 lines each. I think it is very sweet. It's just not one that I feel a lot with, but I do feel a lot about the Lego Batman movie. We're at the final one, track 31 of the Tortured Poets Department, the last track of the anthology. The manuscript. This one is awesome. This one I think is very, very quintessential Taylor Swift. Great wordplay and imagery, very reflective, very sad, exceedingly pensive. Verse 2 makes me think very heavily of Red and the All Too Well storyline. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. The line that I picked to be my favorite line, that was definitively my favorite line, even though there are such great lines in this song, is the last one. "But the story isn't mine anymore." And this is so genius because there are so many ways to think of this. You can think of it as grieving, right? The story isn't mine anymore. It's gone. It's over. It's dead. You can think of it as an artist giving away her story, right? The story isn't mine anymore. Now everyone gets to share it. Now we all get to be a part of this and grieve together. But you can also think of it as the speaker having moved on. The story isn't mine anymore. It's somebody else's. I'm no longer this person. This story belongs to a person that is gone now. The person about whom this story is has metamorphosed into the speaker. And so I can't properly tell it anymore because the person who is responsible for telling it has gone. They've passed. I'm not sure that we'll ever get like a Taylor Swift era again because of the rapidity with which she releases albums. Also, we have more of the re-releases coming still. Obviously, she's in the midst of the Eras tour, all of them. And so I don't think that the Tortured Poets Department will be like a 2-year era the way that Red or 1989 were so distinctly eras. I don't think that this is the end of the Tortured Poets Department. I don't think it's ended before it's really begun. However, regardless of what she has planned, I think "But the story isn't mine anymore" is such a great way to just bookend it. She's said her piece. She's gotten out a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm fairly confident that more will come up, right? She's never gonna, like, we have freaking Midnights, which is a whole album dedicated to feelings that still exist in situations that have long since passed. So I don't think it's fair to say that these themes will never ever come up again, because she is a person, she is very contemplative about her life and her experiences. But nevertheless, it's just kind of settled. The story isn't mine anymore. Now and then I reread the manuscript, the speaker can go back and look at everything that's happened and smile and cringe and laugh and cry about whether it's 6 albums or, you know, like a journal or some pictures, whatever. The speaker has the ability to just look at it now, right? The story is over. We can only reminisce, for better, for worse. And that's all I have to say about that. I made the video about Jack and Aaron's songs, but I think that the fact that I have to kind of restrain myself from talking too much about these songs is indicative of my main point, that the anthology songs, the songs that are very heavily Aaron Dessner, have so much. I've just thought of something. So I talked about how Jack Antonoff layers a bunch of different sounds on top of sounds and harmonies and all sorts of like weird musical things. So his tracks are stacked, right? Like if you're looking at them as you're producing music, they're stacked. I think the same is true figuratively for Aaron Dessner songs, where you have layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of figurative language, of meaning and double entendre and emotion. So you can hear Jack's stack, but you have to listen to Aaron's stack. It's easy for me in the torture post department to just be like, oh, this is great, I love this. But then when we get to the anthology, it's like, all right, we're just gonna have to give like 2 seconds to this because stack. So I'm very, very excited to get into that, specifically with the anthology songs. I'm excited to get into all of it because it's not that the songs on the Tortured Poets department aren't deep, right? There are layers of emotion and figurative language and everything. It's just that the anthology is just more deep. Thanks for coming back, or thanks for coming for the first time. I don't think I've given any introduction or anything as far as who I am or whatever, but I also just assumed that only people who know me were gonna watch this. So if you don't know me, say hi, and I'll know you're there, and then I'll do like a little intro or something. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. I think the next that I'm gonna do is starting out with my individual song analyses, and I'm just gonna start at the top with Fortnite. So I'm hoping to get that done pretty soon, and then we'll keep going from there.